Hello everyone, this is Jack Frost with your weekly update for the Ethereum Technicals and XRP. I apologize before getting into it, the audio is a little bit different. I have a new technical setup as my last piece of hardware failed, and so it will sound a little bit different going forward. Hopefully you can still understand what I'm saying. For the Ethereum Technicals on the weekly chart, price has continued overall lower, breaking below support, now resistance at 1750. We have continued momentum for downwards movement with increasing range on the bearish candlesticks. Volume overall supporting downwards movement, pushes on the various bearish candlesticks, though the pushes are getting increasingly weaker, particularly for the last few weeks. Overall, we do still have a bearish volume profile. ADX continues to increase with a bearish trend that is not currently extreme, though it has previously entered extreme. Currently, the negative DX line is just above the ADX line. This trend may continue to where ADX may reach extreme conditions again, may remain in extreme conditions, and may potentially enter very extreme conditions. On-balance volume has broken below a weak support range, giving a weak bearish signal. This has since been followed by some continued downwards movement, though the signal from on-balance volume was not very strong as it had a noticeable slope and only the minimum 2 tests. RSI has only just entered oversold. Money flow is neutral, though getting closer to oversold itself. ATR has increased as price declined, though it is declining for the short term along with price. Overall, we do have a bearish volatility profile. And as this trend indicated by ADX is not yet extreme, as previously mentioned, it may enter extreme conditions again, may remain in those extreme conditions, and may potentially enter very extreme conditions. RSI may enter more deeply oversold. Money flow may enter oversold itself, and both RSI and money flow may exhibit some bullish divergence before the trend may be in danger of ending at the weekly time frame. On the technical daily chart for Ethereum, we can see more detail for price's recent downwards movement. This previous flag pattern here that I mentioned in the last video had a target calculated at 1432, or around about that point, which price has declined to and surpassed a little bit with the last low just around here. Price testing support around 1500, now increasing ever so slightly. We have this bullish engulfing pattern just here. I'm sorry, there's not a label there. It was just a bit too squished up with that label on this chart. It does have a little bit of support from volume, which I'll get into in a second. Volume is overall declining as price declines as well. A push on some of the bearish candlesticks sees an overall bearish volume profile at the daily time frame as well. This push on volume just here is on the bullish engulfing pattern that I previously mentioned. It is still a push from volume, giving it a little bit of strength, though as it is a weaker push from this previous bearish candlestick here, it does not give it a lot of strength. It may potentially indicate a deeper correction within the ongoing downwards movement as indicated by the weekly chart. ADX on the daily time frame is declining after having entered extreme conditions with its previous bearish trend. RSI is neutral, having returned from oversold recently. Money flow is neutral, getting a little bit closer to oversold, though it has not entered oversold at this point. ATR is increasing for the very short term along with price, giving a slight bullish volatility profile for the very short term. This adds a little bit of confidence to that previous bullish engulfing pattern. Seeing a potential deeper correction with upwards movement to continue for the short term within an ongoing bearish trend as indicated by the weekly chart as previously mentioned. And as ADX declines for Ethereum at the daily time frame, we use the model of stochastics plus support and resistance. At this point, we do rely more heavily on the weekly chart, and as always, we rely more heavily on the Elliott Wave count for markets like Ethereum. Though at the daily time frame, this model of stochastics plus support and resistance suggests an upward swing may occur at this point. Towards resistance up at 2100 or potentially up to 2400, where price finds one of these resistance points, while stochastics may enter overbought. This may relieve the extreme conditions previously indicated by ADX. And as always, and previously mentioned, we do rely more heavily on the Elliott Wave count, particularly for markets like Ethereum. As I mentioned in every video, you can always sign up for that using the link in the description below at pureelliottwave.com. On the XRP weekly chart, the wave count has changed a little bit for the short to mid term, now seeing this downwards movement as a complete minor wave 4 within the ongoing upwards movement for intermediate wave 3. We have a short-term target at minor degree for minor wave 5, which we'll get into on the daily chart in a bit. We have this Elliott channel drawn around the minor degree movements using Elliott's second technique from the end of minor wave 2 to the end of minor wave 4 with a copy on the end of minor wave 3. This may provide some resistance for minor wave 5 as it continues higher. We have this target for intermediate wave 3 calculated at 6.11, calculated using the 6.854 ratio between intermediate wave 3 and 1. Minor wave 4 labeled complete at this low here, subdividing as a double zigzag, though if it does continue any lower, it cannot move into minor wave 1 price territory at 0.6585. And as Minor Wave 5 is expected to be within its very early stages, continuing higher, it is expected to unfold as an impulse, as it is the most common motive structure, though it may also be labeled an ending diagonal depending on how price continues. This target for primary wave 3 continuing overall higher is calculated at 27.44 using the 14.72 ratio between that and primary wave 1. And we have these Fibonacci durations. We also have one for minor wave 5, though that is again on the daily chart. It was just a bit too squished up to have it on the weekly chart as well. I apologize for that. Intermediate wave 3 potentially ending around July 17th, 2025 if it lasts a Fibonacci 377 days. While for primary wave 3, it may end around August 18th, 2025 if it lasts a Fibonacci 144 weeks. Minor wave 3 lasting 23 weeks, just two longer than the Fibonacci 21. Minor wave 4, 12 weeks, just one short of the Fibonacci 13. And minute wave Y within minor wave 4, the 5, a very low Fibonacci number. This high with the end of minor wave 3 on the weekly chart. Is this high here on the daily chart. We see more detail for the downwards movement labeled minor wave 4, as previously mentioned on the weekly chart, subdividing as a double zigzag. Price now expected to continue upwards for minor wave 5. We have a confidence point at 3.4. That is the end of minor wave 3 just here. If price moves above that point, it would avoid a truncation and add a little bit of confidence to the wave count, particularly with the subdivisions that we have now. We have this additional target for minor wave 5 calculated at 6.42 using the 1.618 Fibonacci ratio of minor wave 3. This is a little bit higher than the intermediate wave 3 target, obviously. And so if price reaches this initial target for intermediate wave 3 while the structure remains incomplete, we will use this higher target. And these two targets being a little bit close gives somewhat of a range for where these two waves may be labeled complete, giving us a more specific idea. We also have this Fibonacci duration estimate for minor wave 5, where it may end around July 1st, 2025, if it lasts a Fibonacci 55 days. That, as with the targets, gives us a more broad idea for where both intermediate wave 3 and minor wave 5 may be labeled complete, though price may end one or two either side of both of these Fibonacci estimates for the estimates to remain valid, and the same goes for the estimate on primary wave 3. As price continues higher and we have more data for minor wave 5, we will be able to add the lower degree movements and potentially get some lower degree targets for a more specific idea for not just the structure for minor wave 5, but potentially an even more specific idea for where these waves may be labeled complete, as well as some of the smaller degree movements within minor wave 5. On the technical weekly chart for XRP, price has continued lower. This last completed week here labeled a dragonfly doji, as the open and close is essentially the same. It has a very long lower wick and comes after this decline here. This is a reversal signal, expecting price to continue upwards, which would add a little bit of confidence to the Elliott Wave count, seeing upwards movement to now continue at this point. Price overall declining after finding resistance at 3.2, testing support a few times here at 2.0. Volume is overall declining, even the pushes on volume are increasingly lower. The last couple of pushes on volume have been on the bullish candlesticks, giving a little bit of support to upwards movement. And overall volume does continue to support upwards movement. The volume does decline along with price, at this point with price overall falling of its own weight. ADX continues to steadily decline on the weekly time frame, showing no clear trend. On balance, volume continues within this very steep and very narrow range. It may give a bullish signal breaking above resistance or a bearish signal breaking below support, though it would be a very weak signal at this point as it is a very steep slope, only has the minimum two tests, and is really not very long held. RSI continues to decline, getting quite close to the middle at around 50. Money flow is a little bit closer than RSI to the middle of this range. Neither RSI or money flow exhibit any further divergence. ATR has steeply increased along with price declining for the short term as price consolidates with a little bit of downwards movement, giving an overall bullish outlook for volatility at the weekly time frame. And as there is no clear trend at the weekly time frame for XRP, we use the model of stochastics plus support and resistance. At this time, we do rely more heavily on the Elliott Wave count, though the technical analysis, particularly with this model for stochastics and support and resistance, suggests a downward swing may continue, where price may more thoroughly test support at 2 or just test support again, or potentially down to support at 1.2, where price finds that support point while stochastics may enter oversold. And on the technical daily chart for XRP, we see more detail for price's recent downwards movement, moving overall sideways for the midterm between resistance at 2.8 and 3.2, and support around 2. We have this bullish engulfing pattern here after price's continued decline, and as with the one on Ethereum, it does have a little bit of support from volume, though not a lot. Again, volume is continuing to overall decline. We see some continued pushes of the bullish candlesticks showing overall support for upwards movement. For the short term, this push on the bearish candlestick here shows more support for downwards movement, particularly for the short term, and this push on the previously mentioned bullish engulfing pattern does offer a little bit of support to the candlestick pattern, though as it is a weaker push than this previous bearish candlestick here, it does not have a lot of support. ADX continues to decline, showing no clear trend. RSI is neutral and increasing, having just failed to enter oversold previously. Money flow is neutral and increasing. We have some bullish divergence where money flow makes these higher pivots while price closes lower. ATR is moving overall sideways along with price, declining for the short term, again along with price. And as we still have no clear trend indicated by ADX on the daily time frame either, we continue to use the model of stochastics plus support and resistance, which suggests an upward swing may continue a little bit higher for the short term. Towards resistance around 2.8, where price may find that resistance point, while stochastics may enter overbought. However, as previously mentioned, we do rely a little bit more heavily on the Elliott Wave count, particularly at this time frame, though it is still important to consider this technical data for a more broad and objective look at the market. That's all for me with your update for XRP and the Ethereum technicals. As previously mentioned, if you do want the Ethereum Elliott Wave count, we do that at Pure Elliott Wave. You can always sign up for that using the link in the description below. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a good week. I will be doing another full analysis like this around the same time next week.